Here we are again with another class session on the subject of being and doing. We are trying to dip into the Word of God and discover the concept itself. We're interested more in the concept than we are in the correct words, and the only reason we're using words is to somehow clarify and communicate the wonder of the concept. So don't get all wrapped up in the words itself. Get wrapped up in the concept and the reality of the very presence of Jesus living within you, being what he wants to be within your very being. This is the essence of the concept. It's a cross-style concept, of course, as you realize. It's about death to yourself that he might live through you. It's about you no longer living your life for Christ, but letting Christ live his life through you. It's about you no longer serving him, but allowing him to serve through you. It's not a focus on the doing and the performance, which is all about you and how you're doing and measuring yourself by that performance level, but it's the actual life of Christ now coming to live within you, and the quality of his nature, the very essence of his holiness, being within you what he wants to be, so that out of you could flow what is necessary and what his dream is. Being, doing. Now again, we've said this every class period, but we just want to keep saying it because somehow we've got to grasp this. This has to come through loud and clear. That we are not interested in bad-mouthing, downplaying, being negative about doing. Hey, nobody's against doing. There's no way to keep from doing. If we have any kind of faith at all, we're going to enter into doing. We're not advocating do-nothingism. This is not about being lazy. This is not about being idle. This is about being active, only it's not us, it's him, and the focus is on who is sourcing the activity. So the being concept is all about the sourcing of the activity itself. It's not about non-performance. It's about the sourcing of the performance. What is motivating me? What is driving me? What is the energy that is within me? What is the nature that's producing this through me? What is happening in and at the heart of my very life? That's the issue. So it's an issue with sourcing. So keep in mind that we're looking at the very essence of the life of Jesus, so that my focus as a person is to be totally, absolutely upon the person. If I can get wrapped up in the person, my whole deal is to, be intimate with him, know him, be filled with him, let him fill me, let him literally flow through me, let him bathe me in himself. That's my responsibility. That's my focus. He will take care of the doing. The performance will be there. Out of me will come great things. He will be able to do more in 15 seconds than I can get done in 15 years. Man, Jesus living in and through me. That's the essence of being. Being, doing. Now, we've struggled with language, and we're trying to come up with different kinds of languages and vocabulary in order to crystallize and clarify the very concept itself. Today we want to move to another type of language. It is the language of physical and spiritual. You see, there's my physical life, but there's also this spiritual realm, this spiritual dynamic, this spiritual aliveness. Physical, spiritual. This really becomes crystal clear in my mind when we come to the realm of the activity of the crucifixion itself. It's really interesting as you get into the crucifixion. Again, we're turning to Matthew chapter 27. As you get into the crucifixion, this contrast shows up. Matthew is writing clearly about contrast, trying to teach us about the crucifixion and help us get at the heart of the matter itself. And it's interesting that this contrast is very, very strong in the passage of Matthew chapter 27. It's the contrast again of the physical over against the spiritual. Now you realize when we say physical that we're relating to the doing. And when we talk about spiritual, we're relating it to the being. Now we realize that in the physical realm, there is much more than just doing. There is the whole creation of God. God has made everything that is. There's the trees, there's the objects, that's all physical. There's your body, that's all physical. And that really doesn't have anything to do with doing at this point. Not the doing performance kind of thing that we're talking about. So physical is larger. It's a larger term. It's a larger realm than just the doing. But it's really interesting to me that when you get in the middle of doing, it always has to do with the physical. In other words, it's in the physical realm where we actually perform the doing, where we actually get all wrapped up in doing. It's in the physical realm that we begin to highlight the doing. We measure what we do, the performance, the duty, the obligation. It all takes place in the physical realm. It's also interesting to me that the spiritual is dynamic. It's the unseen world. It's the world you cannot grasp. It's the world of the Spirit itself, who's moving and alive. There's a war going on in the spiritual realm. And there are all kinds of things happening in the spiritual realm. We understand that. But in the spiritual realm that we're talking about for our own personal lives, it has to do with being. Now we again realize that the spiritual realm is bigger than just my personal being. There's all the dynamic of the angels that's in the spiritual realm. In the unseen heavenly realms, there's the whole battle again that's taking place in the warfare between the principalities and powers. And that our realm, our war is not really, Paul says, in the realm of the physical between you and me, flesh and bones, but it's really in the realm of the spiritual, which is way beyond me, and yet I'm intimately involved in it. So in the spiritual realm, there is this area, there is that which is bigger than us and the being. But in the reality, being takes place in the spiritual realm. It's always in the unseen. It seems to have to do with the mystical. It has to do with the relationship between you and Jesus, myself and the Christ, the intimacy of his life. Now, so we're talking in terms of physical, we're talking in terms of spiritual. Doing, being, realizing all the time that the physical is bigger than just the doing, but the doing is involved in the physical itself. And that in the spiritual realm, it's bigger than just the being, but in the being, that takes place in the spiritual realm. Physical, spiritual, the contrast. Come with me to Matthew chapter 27. Interesting chapter again. As we look at it, you begin to see the contrast of the physical and the spiritual. As you get into it, you see that Matthew doesn't really give us, in fact, as you begin to investigate the other gospel writers as well, they do the same thing. The gospel writers don't give us the details of the crucifixion that we really want. See, we want the details of Jesus' death. We want to know how exactly did they nail him to a tree. We want to know, did they put the cross down, pick him up by his heels and by his shoulders and lay him on the cross? When they pulled his hand over and tried to put a nail in it, did he try to yank it back? When they brought the hammer down upon the nail, did they miss the nail and smash his fingers? How many blows did it actually take to get the job done of putting a nail in his hand? See, we'd like the physical details of that scene. We like those physical details because it's all about doing. Then we can measure how many drops of blood he actually spilled. What was actually involved? How many blows came down on the hammer? How many times did the water drip from his side? See, we like those physical kind of details because it fulfills the need of measuring and doing. See, it's all wrapped up in that same realm. But as you get into Matthew's account, and again, all the other gospel writers as well, you begin to discover that in that account, there is nothing given to us about those physical details. That they are left blank. For instance, look at verse 35. Matthew chapter 27, verse 35. It says, "Then they crucified him." That's the sum total of it. That's the sum total of it. Look at verse 31. "And when they had mocked him, they took the robe off from him, put his own clothes on him, and led him away to be crucified." So you got the end of verse 31, led him away to be crucified, and you got verse 35, then they crucified him. And that's it. That's the only description we have of what they did to him. Everything else that is going on, on the whole rest of the account is events that are taking place around the cross. Now you get a little closer to what's going on in the cross in terms of Jesus as he cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me? And some of those things of what he was doing when he was hanging on the cross. But the actual nailing to the cross, the actual crucifixion, the actual what took place, the physical details of the doing of the crucifixion are left out. He gives us this drama, this insight into what was taking place, hoping that we will see the spiritual dynamic of what is happening. He's trying to move us from just physical details, the doing of the crucifixion, and he's attempting to move us into the aliveness of the spiritual being of the crucifixion itself. Now, the contrast is everywhere. For instance, listen to this one. It's verse, 35. That is 31. And when they mocked him, they took the robe off from him, put his own clothes on him, and led him away to be crucified. Now, go down to verse 35. Then they crucified him, divided his garments, casting lots, that it might be fulfilled what was spoken by the prophet. They divided my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. Can you see it? Here's these soldiers. There are 4 of them. There's always 4 doing a crucifixion, you understand. And the reason for that is, hey, crowd control, lots going on, lots of things are needed. And not just any soldier can crucify, you understand. And soldiers don't make much money, you know that. So they have to get an extra job. And hey, the extra service that I decided to render was, I didn't want to be a bouncer down at the bar, so I decided I would get into the crucifixion business. Now, to be qualified to crucify, not just anybody can do it. You have to be trained. You have to go to Saturday seminars. You have to get study and take a test over the manual. For there's a manual about crucifixion, the proper etiquette of crucifixion. You understand? And then after you pass the test and become qualified, then you're on the roster, and then they call you. And I was called to be part of the crucifixion of Christ. Again, there's always 4 of us. And the dead guy, what we get paid, the dead guy, the guy who's being crucified, well, he doesn't need it. What he leaves behind is what we get. And he always leaves behind the headgear, the sandals, the waist gear, and the loin thing. And that there's always the belt thing. There's always that, you know. And we divide them up among ourselves. And sometimes you can use them for yourself, or sometimes you sell them on the marketplace. But hey, it's the bonus. Oh, but with this Jesus, whoa! He not only left these 4 items, he left a 5th piece. It's a seamless garment. Whoa! I took one look at that and said, I gotta have that thing, man. I want, that's an expensive thing. I gotta have that. I gotta have that seamless garment. Seamless garment. I gotta have that for my wife. Whoa! Could she make a dress with that? Wow! She could make 10 pairs of pants for the boys out of that thing. I gotta have that seamless garment. I just gotta have that seamless garment. But the other guys had bids on it. So I talked them into gambling over it. They actually wanted to cut the thing up and destroy it. 4 ways, you know. I talked them out of that. Let's gamble over it. Let's gamble over it. And so, hey, the other 3 have already thrown the dice. Oh, now it's my turn. Oh, Lady Luck. Be good to me, Lady Luck. If I could just win this for my wife. If I could win this. Hey, oh, come on, Lady Luck. Physical. All the time. Think about this. All the time. In the spiritual realm, in the unseen dynamic, in the realm that you cannot grasp, you cannot get a hold of, that is not a tangible thing that you can measure. In the unseen world, in the heavenly realms, there is a dynamic thing going on that's unprecedented. God is doing the biggest thing he's ever done. He's literally bringing about the redemption of an entire world. And that what's happening here is so far beyond the physical realm. Oh, Lady Luck, be good to me. It's way beyond the physical realm. It's in the spiritual dynamics that God is literally doubling up his fist and socking the devil in the eye and giving him a blow he'll never get over, and defeat is his forever and ever and ever, and victory, that's going to affect generations that have passed and generations that are coming. It's all taking place right here in the unseen world. And these guys, if I could just win this for my wife. They don't have a clue. They're all wrapped up in their doing, their job, their money, their accomplishments, I did a good job. another event. They missed the spiritual dynamic, the reality of what was taking place in the spiritual realm. Physical, spiritual. Now you realize the leaders of Israel aren't much better. You can see that as you continue on. For instance, go down to verse 38. Then 2 robbers were crucified with him, one on the right and another on the left. And those who passed by blasphemed him, wagging their heads and saying, "You who destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." Likewise, the chief priest, also mocking with the scribes and the elders, said, "He saved others, himself he cannot save. If he is king of Israel, let him now come down from the cross, and we will believe him. He trusted in God. Let him deliver him now if he will have him. For he said, I am the Son of God." Can you see the leaders of Israel? They're physically standing down at the physical base of the physical cross. They physically got the job done. They physically nailed a physical Jesus with physical nails to a physical cross. And they're physically wiping their hands saying, "Good job, guys, good job." Physically whacking each other on the back because they solved their physical problem. What was their physical problem? Well, a physical Jesus. He's been physically breaking their physical laws. Yeah, physically messing up their physical program. Physically went in and physically messed up their physical temple. Something terrible. And hey, who knows? If the teenagers find out about this, who knows what they'll do? I mean, hey, you got to get this kind of physical activity under control and squelch it, physically squelch it really good. So they have physically got a hold of Jesus, physically had a trial, physically got it done, physically nailed him, and physically are bringing him to death, physically wiping their hands. Physically they have accomplished what they wanted. All the time in the unseen world, all the time in the world you cannot grasp, all the time in the world that, hey, is, you can't put your finger on it, man. It's in the mystical realm. It's the unseen heavenly realms. God is literally doing the biggest thing that ever has been seen. Redemption for an entire world is taking place. God is literally pulling off the biggest deal that will ever happen in the eternities. His own son is literally paying the ransom price. Man is being freed. Sin is broken. Victory and forgiveness is put in place. And man is enabled to come into the very essence of God's presence and be filled with the very presence of God in the unseen spiritual being world. Physical. Oh, good job, guys. Good job, guys. We handled it. Hey, we took care of the problem. Good job. Good job. Good job. Oh, lady, let's be good to me. We're all wrapped up in their accomplishments, their physical activity, their duty, their law, their performance, missing the wonder of the spiritual dynamic that's taking place in that hour. Physical, spiritual. Now you may say, well, Manley, you act as if the physical is bad. No, the physical is not bad. And that's not what we're trying to say. Hey, doing is not bad. Physical is not bad. We're not negative about it. We said it before, but you got to get it. See, physically, hey, physical is not wrong. God made the physical and said, hey, I did a good thing. Hey, God made everything that's physical. The physical realm, the doing realm. He made us to be people who can accomplish and perform and do. So that's not bad. That's not evil. Well, the spiritual certainly isn't evil, that's for sure. I mean, being is really good. I mean, intimacy with God, you got to admit, that's what we're built for. So that's good. And doing is good. Physical is good. Spiritual is good. Being is good. So what's the problem here? Well, let's get into that. Let's see if we can walk our way through that. Let's start with this. Facilitator. Grasp this concept. Do you realize that God gave us the physical, the doing, to facilitate and get us into the spiritual, the being? That was the whole deal. The whole purpose of the physical. It was like a stepping stone, if you please. The reason God gave it to us was to act like a gigantic finger pointing in the direction of the spiritual realm, the being. So everything in the physical realm is for the purpose of teaching us and wooing us and bringing us and elevating us into the spiritual dynamic. Let me give you some examples. For instance, you realize in the Old Testament, that they had all of these ceremonies and they had all of these things they had to do, and it was really a total focus on doing. There was the activities down at the temple, there was the temple they had to build, and before that, of course, the tabernacle, carry that thing around, set it up, there was the sacrifices, there was all this stuff, this doing stuff that they had to do. It was all there. God gave them that. But you know what the book of Hebrews calls it? The book of Hebrews calls it the shadow. Yeah, all of that was a shadow. See, it wasn't a real thing. It was a shadow of the real thing that was to come. And so it was simply a stepping stone. And God gave us the shadow, so when the real thing showed up, it wouldn't just blow us away. We'd say, I think I've seen this before. And he was getting us ready for the real thing, which is the being and the dynamic of intimacy in the very presence of God. See, God gave us the physical to facilitate and move us into the spiritual realm. The spiritual realm of his own presence, the being. He gave us the doing to help us get into the little being. And doing is always for one single thing, that it might point us in the direction of, oh, there is this being, there is this dynamic of God. He alone can resource what needs to be done in my life. For instance, Jesus told parables. Oh, they were so physical. Yeah, they were so physical. Everywhere you turn in the parables, it's about a physical man doing physical stuff. For instance, there was a physical sower who had physical seed and was doing a physical deed of physically sowing the seed in his physical field. And of course, there was physical plants and physical bird and physical thorns and physical rocks and physical soil, and everything was so physical. The whole thing. Parable of the sower. Jesus gave the interpretation of that. He said, oh, the reason I told you that parable was to move you into and have you grasp what's really going on in the dynamic of the spiritual, the being. See, the seed is the Word of God. The soil is your life. The bird is the devil. The plant is the growth of that seed within you and what's taking place within you in intimacy and strength and vitality and nutrition from God himself. It's all about the being thing. And I gave you this physical parable of all of this doing stuff to somehow cause you to grasp the reality and the wonder of the spiritual being reality. Fantastic. For instance, you go down to church and they have this special Sunday once in a while, and you sit there and they come to you and they give you a little crust of bread. Yeah, this little crust of bread. It's so small you can't even put butter on it. You couldn't toast it, that's for sure. And they give you this little crumble of bread. And then they come along and they give you this little glass of grape juice. I mean, it's so small you can hardly get a taste of it. And you know it's going to be a drier sermon than that. But there it is, you know. And you hold these things and you contemplate, you think, you pray, and you look at them. And then all together, you begin to take them with the rest of the people that are around you, and you go through this physical thing of taking this little crust of bread and putting it in your mouth, and you drink this little, and tears begin to flow down your face, and you begin to realize the wonder of all that's taking place and has taken place in the spiritual realm for you, as God has literally brought about the necessary item of forgiveness of sins and indwelling of his presence and all the wonder of the intimacy of his person. What was this physical thing about? What was this communion thing? What was this bread? What was this grape juice all about? Oh, it was about somehow bringing us into the reality of the spiritual being. It was the physical, the doing, all of that was like a gigantic finger pointing in the direction of, oh, the being, the spiritual reality, the wonder of the whole thing. Now, the Apostle Paul talked to us about this in terms of the Old Testament law. The Old Testament law was absolutely filled with doing. I mean, it was performance-based. I mean, God's sitting over there on Mount Sinai yelling at us, giving us this stuff to do, and here I'm trying to pull this off, doing my best. And Paul called that a school teacher. A school teacher to teach us what? To teach us about the spiritual realm. To teach us about the being. To give us a handle on the fact that, hey, we can't pull this off. Doing will never, ever get this done. Doing will never, ever get this done. That God gave us this physical thing, this doing activity, this law stuff to teach us, to thoroughly convince us that we cannot get it done on our own. We can't source this thing. We can't just live in the realm of our own doing and accomplish this. Somehow, we've got to get into the being. And in the being, everything we want to see accomplished will come about. In the new energy, in the life of God, in the wonder of His presence, in the fullness of His being, we begin to experience this outpour of doing that comes as it's energized. And the issue is the source of it. God gave us, are you getting this? God gave us the physical, the doing, to facilitate and move us into the spiritual realm. But it's really interesting in the passage, because as you get into the passage, they reversed it. Now that's typical of people who are stuck in doing. They reversed the process. See, instead of allowing the leaders of Israel, I'm talking about, instead of allowing the physical to bring them into the realm of the spiritual and the spiritual reality, they wanted to use the spiritual reality to help them in the physical. Oh, let me show you. For instance, look at verse 39. And those who passed by blasphemed him, wagging their heads and saying, "You destroy the temple and build it in 3 days. Save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." Then it says, likewise, the chief priests, also mocking with the scribes and the elders, said, "Well, he saved others. Himself he cannot save. If he's king of Israel, let him now come down." Now, what are they saying? They're saying, hey, if I were you, and I had spiritual reality going on, I had spiritual contact with a spiritual God, that I was really being, you know what I'd do? I would utilize that to help me in the physical. Because after all, the physical is the big deal. So if I was going to die on a cross, hey, if I was nailed to a cross dying, one of the things I would look for is, I'd look for a way out. I'd look for some kind of, there should be spiritual perks, you know, and you should be able to utilize the spiritual dynamic to help you in the physical. Because after all, the doing is what really matters. The physical is what really counts. They had it backwards. See, God gave us the physical to facilitate the spiritual. They wanted to take the spiritual and facilitate the physical. That's backwards. But then, we seem to be that way. We're always looking at the performance level. We're always looking at, doing the right thing. We're always looking at what I can accomplish. See, we're always measuring ourselves. And we're anxious to use God. Oh, God, heal my body. Oh, God, make me feel better. Oh, God, help me with this problem. Oh, God, take care of that obstacle. Oh, God, remove this. Help me do better. See, we're really into that. Because our whole focus is on the doing. We think the big deal is the physical. Hey, he says the big deal is the being. The being, the source of this thing. And that's why he gave us the doing. It was to facilitate the being. Now, let me give you, hang on to that, and let me give to you another dynamic truth. God gave us the physical to facilitate the spiritual. So facilitate really matters. But there's a second idea. It's the foundation. It's interesting that the foundation of the physical is the spiritual. Now, here's what I mean by that. Now, think this through. God gave us the physical to facilitate and move us into the spiritual realm, the being. He wants us to exist there, in the being dynamic. That it isn't that there isn't going to be physical, and it isn't that there isn't going to be doing. We're not advocating do-nothingism. That doesn't exist. Sure, there's going to be activities, and sure, there's going to be performance, and sure, we're going to do stuff. But hey, the focus, the big deal is in the realm of the being. The being is the issue, the source of the thing. So God gave us the physical to facilitate and move us into the spiritual being world. Once we literally are in the spiritual realm and are being, we are to look at everything in the physical and judge everything in the physical doing realm through the spiritual eyes that we now have. Now, do you realize that if you do not do that, everything will turn out to be chaos? Your whole belief system will begin to crumble. You will begin to ask questions that don't have any answers. You will not be able to see your way through this. So do you realize that everything's going to crumble if you don't grasp this concept? Let me give it to you again. See, God gave us the physical to facilitate the doing, to facilitate and get us into the spiritual, the being realm. Now, once we're really filled with Him, once He's captured us, once He's our big deal, once we're intimate with Him, we are to look through His eyes, look through His perception, find His heart, dwelling in His heart, feeling what He feels. We are to look through His eyes and view the physical, and all the doing literally begins to be seen and is judged through the spiritual eyes of the Jesus that we are now being in and who is being in us. Now, it's really interesting, again, in the passage, you find they reversed that thing. So typical of us, isn't it? They reversed it. Yeah. See, instead of using the physical to facilitate the spiritual, they wanted to use the spiritual to facilitate the physical. Because the physical for them was the big deal. The accomplishment, the doing, the measuring, I'm better than you are. Hey, they were really into that. Now they wanted to view everything that was going on in the spiritual realm through their physical doing eyes. In other words, they judged what was happening in the spiritual through the eyes of the physical or eyes of the doing. That's backwards. See, we're to get into the being, get into the spiritual, and judge everything in the physical through the being eyes. That changes everything, your whole perspective. Let me give you the example in the passage. Here they are again. Go back to verse 40, or verse 39. And those who passed by blasphemed him, wagging their heads and saying, now listen to this. You destroy the temple and build it in 3 days. Save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross. Now, these are blasphemers. These are bypassers. Hey, what do they know? They don't know anything. This is the common element of Israel. They are from the suburbs. They've got their new boat behind their car. They're on the way out for a weekend with their kids in the back seat, and they're going to have a big time. And there's this traffic jam, and they can't get through, and they're wondering what's going on, so they get out, and they come over, and they find this crucifixion thing, and there is Jesus. All they know about Jesus is what they've read in the Inquirer. They've heard about the miracles. They've been down, they've heard about some of the things he said, and so they're quoting him, they think. But they don't know. They aren't into his heart. They aren't into his mind. It's just a physical event of a Jesus who had some ideas, but now he's dying on a cross. And so they're viewing him. And as they view him, they say, now, we realize that you say you're the Son of God. Isn't that what they say in verse 40? If you are the Son of God. You claim to be the Son of God. You claim to be the Messiah. But listen, how are we going to know whether you're the Messiah or not? Come on. How are we going to make a spiritual judgment like that? How are we going to decide you are the Son of God, you are not the Son of God? How are you going to determine those kind of things? Oh, I know how we'll do it. We will determine it by our physical doing realm. If you will do a certain thing, like come down from the cross, then we'll believe you. Because certainly you ought to be able to do that if you're a son of God. And we're going to judge our whole perception of you, our whole belief system, everything we think about you, whether we accept you as Messiah or whether we don't accept you as Messiah, is all going to be based on our doing. You and what you perform and what you do. Because that's what really matters to us. Let me give you another example. The leadership of Israel. Again, they aren't much better. Look at this. Verse 41. Likewise, the chief priest also mocking with the scribes and the Pharisees said, the scribes and the elders said, he saved others, himself he cannot save. Get this. If he is the king of Israel, let him now come down from the cross. Hey, if he is the king of Israel, he claims to be the king of Israel, but how would we know? How would we judge that? What kind of test would we make to see if he's really the king of Israel? How would we really go about to determine that factor? Well, I'll tell you how we'll do it. We will judge by what he does. We're going to stay in the realm of our doing. We're going to stay in the realm of our physical. And if he comes down from the cross, then, hey, we might believe that we're going to let what we see in the physical realm, what we see in our doing, measuring, accomplishment world, we're going to let that be the standard of what that's going to determine what we believe in our spiritual life, in the being realm. In fact, they even state that. Look at the end of verse 42. He saved others, himself he cannot save. If he is King of Israel, let him now come down from the cross, and we will believe him. When are we going to believe? What's going to determine our spiritual life? What's going to determine our being in relationship to God? Well, it's going to be what we see, physical, what is done, accomplishment, performance. That's what we're really into. That's us, isn't it? Do you know how many times we allow our physical doing realm, what's done, the performance, to determine what we do, what we believe spiritually, what we are into in the realm of being? For instance, a guy comes up to me and says, I can't believe in God. And I say, what are you talking about? I can't believe in God. Well, look around you. Yeah, I have looked around me, man. And you know what I see? Starvation, babies being hurt, I see abortion. I see all this stuff going on, man. And I see all this pain and all this ugliness and all this sin and all this crime and people who did not deserve famine and people who did not deserve to hurt, starving to death, little kids, man. I see all that going on. And then you want to come and tell me that there is this wonderful God who loves everybody and is so concerned about everybody. And he's just a loving, kind, merciful God. And yet I see all of this. Do you see what you've done? You're in the realm of the performance. You're in the realm of the doing. You're in the realm of the physical. And you're right here and say, I'm going to let what I see in the physical determine what I believe in my spiritual life. See, you're dead wrong on that. See, God gave us this physical to facilitate and get us into the spiritual realm. We are to get into the mind of Christ. We are to get into his heart. We are to be in him. He is to be in us. We are to feel the throb of his soul. We are to know his mind and how he thinks. And we are to judge everything in our physical life through this being. Not what's going on in our physical performance life, judging what we believe in our spiritual. We're to get into the spiritual. We're going to get into the being, into the mind and the heart of Christ. And in that mind and heart of Christ, we begin to understand the pain and the agony, the sin, the cause. We begin to understand what's happening here. So many people have gotten messed up in this in their lives. Hey, we look at our lives and we see the defeat. We see, hey, we try to do what we ought to do. We want to keep the rules. We want to be holy. We want to have victory over sin, but we can't. We get defeated. We've got habits. We've got this. We lose our temper. We cuss our wife out. We got all of this. Hey, I'm defeated, man. So what do? We look at that spiritual being realm and say, well, I'm going to determine what I believe in the spiritual realm by what's going on in my life. Hey, I've tried. I'm in the doing. I'm trying to perform this thing, and I just can't do it. Therefore, I'm not going to believe in holiness. It just can't be done. You've missed it, man, because you've stayed here in the physical doing realm when you should have gotten into being with God, experienced his nature, and found something going on in you that's way beyond what you can do that would affect everything in your physical realm. All of your doing spilling out of and being affected by and caused. See, right here's where you should have been. Now let me give you one other idea. It's the idea of focus. Now, if you're following us, facilitator. God gave us the doing, the physical, to facilitate and move us into the being, the spiritual realm. Foundation. Once you're into the spiritual being realm, you are to look through the eyes of God and the spiritual nature of Jesus that you're now intimate with, and you're to judge everything that's going on in the physical doing realm. That being is to determine your physical, how you interpret it, what you think about it, how you judge it, all to be determined by this spiritual being realm. So what's the issue here then? Well, the issue is, thirdly, focus. That becomes the issue. Well, the physical isn't bad. That's right. We're not against the doing. That's exactly right. So if you're saying, well, you believe in being lazy, you're advocating do-nothingism. No, we're not. That's not what we're doing at all. We're advocating that there is a spiritual dynamic, there is a being, there is an intimacy with Jesus, there is a oneness with him, which is the big deal here, and everything else is to come out of that. Yes, there's doing. You can't live without performance and doing and activities. We understand that. But hey, it's all from this being. The energizing, what sources it is what matters. Now, you can stay in the realm of the physical. You can exist right here in the realm of the physical. And hey, you can focus on that, and you can live right there, and let that determine what you believe about the spiritual and everything around you. And this performance level, this doing, this, you can measure that. I'm okay, the Pharisees did it. I'm okay because I do this, this, and this, and this. I'm okay because I pay my bills and go to church. I'm okay. You're judging everything by the physical. Or you could get into the spiritual and let this be your focus. And in seeing Jesus in his mind, how he thinks, what drives him begins to drive you. What moves him begins to move you. As you begin to dwell in that area, that becomes the focus of your life and begins to change your whole perspective of doing. And something begins to spill through you that literally moves your world, as it did in the crucifixion. Let me give you an example. For instance, take a piece of paper. Do this when you get home. Take a piece of paper and divide it into 3 columns. Draw 2 lines down it and make 3 columns. Over the top of one column, you write the event. Over the top of the other, you write how long. And over the top of the other, you write category, physical, spiritual, or doing, being. And I want you now, tomorrow morning or whenever, I want you to begin a day where you calculate, you write down every event that takes place and tell me whether it was spiritual or whether it was physical, whether it was doing or whether it was being. For instance, the alarm goes off at 5 o'clock in the morning. You shut that stinking thing off. Good night, I don't. Write that down. Yelled at the alarm. 5 seconds. Physical. Was a doing thing. It's on snooze. It now sounds again. Shut that stinking thing on. So, hey, write that down. Yell at the alarm the second time. That's physical. 5 seconds. You get up, you get up out of bed. Oh, my back is killing me. Hey, physical. Complained about my back. 10 seconds. Physical. I went into the bathroom. Looked in the mirror. Ooh, repulsed by my own face. Write that down. That's 10 seconds. That's physical. Brushed your teeth. Write that down. 15 seconds. Physical. Went downstairs. Got a cup of coffee. Physical. 15 seconds. Drank coffee. Got in the car. Drove to work. See, just write all this down. How long? Physical. Physical. Somebody cut me off. Honked at him. Physical. Physical. Worked all day. Yelled at the boss. Physical. Physical. Came home. Ate some supper. Physical. Hey, ate some supper. Physical. Watched TV. Physical. Hey, went to bed. Physical. Next morning, shut that stinking thing. Physical. Your whole life. All wrapped up in doing, performance, activity, physical. Well, preacher, what do you want me to do? Want me to not brush my teeth? No, brush your teeth, man. Keep brushing your teeth. What can I cut out? And you didn't put anything in there about I prayed before my meals, and hey, I had a scripture I quoted before I left in the car. That was spiritual, yeah. But yet the majority of your day was all focused on what? Physical, doing. What am I going to do next? How well did I do? Man, I'm so busy. I'm stressed out. Why am I stressed out? Well, I got all this stuff I got to do. I got to go over. Oh, man, I'm on a schedule. Oh, good night. I'll never make it. I got to pick up the kids. Listen, I got to get supper. Oh, who's going to do the dishes? Well, how are we going to? Man, there's just not enough hours in the day. To do what? To do the doing things. See, I'm all wrapped up in. My whole life is is just engulfed in. I'm just confronting all these problems. Hey, the kids are sick, the husband is and I gotta, and I'm gonna, and oh, what am I gonna, and now I gotta go to church, and I got all this religious stuff to do on top of all of it. Oh, brother, man, I gotta read my Bible, I gotta do the spiritual discipline stuff, I gotta go to church, I got the committee meeting, hey, I've even got, oh, I got the choir too, oh man, I'm supposed to witness also, I got all this doing stuff. I mean, it's all over my life. It's all about doing. Well, I don't know how to get out of that, preacher. What do you want me to quit? Don't want you to quit anything. We're not talking about right or wrong, good or bad. Hey, it's not about that. Let me show you. Draw the lines on the paper. Hey, in the morning, alarm goes off. Shut that thing off! Oh, man, isn't it good to be alive? Thank God for another day. Spiritual. See, it's living in the being world, of intimacy with Jesus. You've been fellowshipping with him all night. You wake up with him in the morning, and he's intimate in your life, and you view the ringing of the bell, you view the ringing of the alarm as the act of God birthing a new day in your life. And you say, oh, thank you, Jesus, for a new day. Spiritual. Now, it isn't that you canceled the day. It isn't that you weren't going to do. Hey, you did do. You shut off the alarm. That was fine. But see, it was all about spiritual. It was all about being. It was all about him. You got out of bed. You said, oh, my back's killing me. Thank God I got a back to hurt. See, God is giving you the back. Hey, you begin to see an intimacy with him. You begin to view everything that goes on. You go into the bathroom. You look in the mirror. Oh, repulsed by my own face. Hey, thank God I don't have to look at it all day. Thank God. See, you're into the thing is all, you haven't changed anything. You're still doing everything you did before. It isn't that, hey, it was bad to do that. It was somehow, some way, in the spiritual dynamic, in the being, something has taken place in your life that changes the way you view everything. So it's not, I'm doing away with the doing, I'm quitting the doing stuff, I'm going to be lazy. It isn't that. It's life goes on. We still have all the same things, but in the midst of his presence, in the midst of oneness with him, in the midst of being, everything changes. Pressure is off. The pressure is off. Relaxation takes place. Rest comes your way. Wow. And it's because of the being. Hey, you go downstairs, you grab a cup of orange juice. Thank God I've been delivered from coffee. See, everything has changed. Hey, you're driving down the road, a guy cuts you off. Bless God, probably had a fight with his wife. I'll pray for him. Hey, everything has changed, man. Everything has changed because of the spiritual being. So again, we're not talking about physical is bad, spiritual is good. It's not that. There's nothing wrong with the physical. Thank God for the physical. Hey, physical is good. Doing is good. We're people of action. We understand that. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's focus. Now, if you say, well, oh, you're right. My focus has been off. I've gotten so sucked into the doing and sucked into the being, sucked into the performance and sucked into the physical that, hey, I haven't seen the being. I've been dead wrong. I haven't been focused on Christ. He hasn't been the reality of my life. I'm going to change my focus. No, you're not. No, you're not. Because the truth of the matter is you can't. See, you're not capable of that. You can't just make up your mind, I'm going to change my focus and do that. See, that doesn't happen. This is about him. This is about intimacy with his person. This is about going after him until he does something inside of you. This is about the knobs that control the focus of your screen or where you can't reach. He has to come to you. He has to do in you what you cannot do. He has to alter you. See, this is about him. This is about seeking. This is about desiring. This is about wanting. This is about passion. This is about going after him. Would you join me in that? Dear Jesus, we're going after you. Oh, we're going after you. We got to have you. I got to have you, Jesus. I'm so wrapped up in my doing and the pressures of my day and all the stuff I got to accomplish, and my physical realm is just beating me to death, God. I'm dying by inches. Could you confront me? Could you literally envelop me? Could you pull me into your heart and your mind? until I could see everything through your eyes and be in you and you be in me. Do that right now in my life. In Jesus' name, amen.